let's just turn our attention, because all of the focus obviously has been on that US session, and we're watching those SPI futures. They were in for a pretty flat start there today. SPI futures up just 1 point. Not all that much movement. Surprisingly, the failure of that healthcare bill there in the United States. We did see a drop-off in the US session, but not to the degree that a lot of people were expecting. But it looks like, we'll be in for a fairly flat start, I think, given the drop in commodities, those energy stocks, iron ore miners, and then, of course, the healthcare stocks will be in focus in our local session there today. Let's get across a bit more, though, on what we're watching overseas and those opportunities in particular. Nathan Bell from Peters McGregor is joining us live from Sydney. Nathan, look, thanks very much for joining us, and I'm not sure if you were sort of closely watching what was happening there on Friday with the US market and so forth, but all of the news was sort of dedicated to the failure of that healthcare bill. How significant is the failure of that bill, and what do you think it means for markets going forward?
Yeah, look, I've paid a lot of attention to it. The one interesting area, I think, and it's not one we've invested in America, but the drug companies are the ones that have been under a lot of pressure in that healthcare sector. Whether it was Clinton or Trump, there was been a lot of pressure coming from a lot of individuals that think that prices need to come down. We saw the explosion or implosion of Valiant, whose basic strategy was just to completely rort people who absolutely needed life-saving medicines. So we've seen, it was, I think, more than expected that was going to fall back onto everyone at some point. But what we're actually seeing now is the drug companies are actually able to push through high single-digit price increases, and I don't think that's going to have much of impact on the businesses themselves. So if I was looking in the area, I think those drug companies are probably the most interesting.
Absolutely. Now, before we move to Europe, let's just stick with the US and some of the stocks that you're closely monitoring. Amazon, as we know, I mean, it's really dominating retail in the United States. A lot of questions about what their imminent presence here in Australia will mean. But how do you expect it to fare when it does open here in Australia? Do you think investors should be considering buying the stock?
Yeah, I think the most underappreciated, at least in Australia, part of Amazon, besides its Amazon Web Service, which is a separate story, but it's its $99 essentially free delivery service called Prime. And what it means is, as long as you pay this annual $99 fee, not only do you get free delivery, but you also get a whole bunch of other free things thrown in, like free streaming TV and movies. And Amazon is trying very hard to add more and more stuff to that free service. And what it's doing is it's causing people to just completely abandon going to Google to search for different items and comparing them by different retailers, because you've simply got no incentive. You've got this wonderful delivery service where you get your stuff within at least a couple of days. You've got the cheapest costs on Amazon, so people are just going straight to Amazon, and that's part of the reason why it's absolutely dominating retail. Now, I don't know what that service is going to look like in Australia, but what Amazon really likes about our country is that we tend to get ripped off for everything. Our prices are extremely high, and as Amazon said, our high margins are their opportunities. So I think people are going to love Amazon, but I'm not completely sure what it's going to be selling yet, and it'll just be about getting the delivery times right.
So loving Amazon, what about the other retailers that it might be impacting when it comes here in Australia? I mean, would you be sort of steering well clear of the retail sector?
Yeah, I mean, in the past, every time I've gone near a retail stock, money's been lost anyway, so I learnt my lesson a long time ago. But JB Hi-Fi and Harvey Norman, to me, look like the obvious ones just because they're the electronics retailers, and that's the sort of stuff you can buy very easily online and where it's all about price. But I think Amazon is a stock worth investing in. I feel like we've been watching it get away from us in slow motion. It's about a $350 billion stock now, but I think if we look forward in 10 years, the market value is going to be a lot higher. But trees don't grow to the sky, so hopefully there's a hiccup at some point that gives us a better opportunity.
Now, based on international subscription numbers, Netflix seems to be going from strength to strength. We've spoken about your holding in 21st Century Fox before. How is this impacting that holding?
Yeah, Netflix is going gangbusters, and what's interesting at the moment is that it's starting to cause a war for talent, and it's also pushing up the cost of producing content. In the earlier days, a lot of companies like Fox would be happy to do a content deal with Netflix because it meant essentially they'd be able to get old content out to a newer audience, and so therefore they collect a nice bit of money that they wouldn't get otherwise. But now Netflix has essentially become a major competitor, and because it's prepared to pay a lot of money I think there's like one series that's cost about $9 million US dollars per show, which I think is the highest cost show out there, or certainly one of them. They're now competing directly with companies like Fox. So our rationale for owning Fox has never been about the studios and the big movies, but rather the fact that it has a news service that's very popular and it's only costs about $1 per month in the cable bill versus $8 or $9 for sports, for example. So we think it's a very low cost piece of content that will always be in the cable TV subscription, even if people start going to skinny bundles.
All right, fantastic. Now, just to finish off, heading across the globe, you recently bought European bank ING Group. What attracted you to that stock?
Yeah, I think the broader case for European banks has got much more interesting over the past 6 months. We've seen the Italians recapitalise its banking sector, in a sense flouting the European Union rules. So it tells me that the Italians and Europe generally is getting serious about trying to get rid of this austerity program and actually start getting their economies growing. So I think the whole banking sector has become a lot safer, and I actually think growth might surprise in Europe over the next couple of years, and you're paying absolutely nothing for potentially higher interest rates in the future. And if you looked at what happened to US banks, no one wanted to own them 12 or 15 months ago, and I keep talking about Bank of America, but its share price went from 12 to about 25 now. So it shows how quickly opinions can change in the market, and at the moment you could buy European banks for less than book value. They're far more profitable than you would ever think reading the media headlines. They pay strong dividend yields. ING pays about 4.5% dividend yield, well run, and it's actually Australia's 5th largest lender, would you know. So it's a really high quality bank with no GFC legacy problems.
All right, fantastic. Nathan, been great talking to you this morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Leanne.